Hello everybody, Andrew Casey at Hypersanity Audiobooks. I'm taking a look at the book Douche Mage. I enjoyed this book, and as an audiobook, I think it is heaps better. Gamelit fantasy can be underestimated in some ways, but when it's an original idea and original humour within the book, from the perspective that it's told, I think as an audiobook it's heaps better. And I think with this genre, it is something to explore as an audiobook. So if you do like video games, and also especially something like Dungeons & Dragons, playing with some friends and a bit of humour, I think give this book a go. And there are other books just like it that I think is a market to get into. Number 1. Written by a pantser. Damien Hanson is a pantser, and through his Patreon he has his book series BuyMort, which is going fabulously well. And he's got 6 books out now. And with BuyMort, I've got through the first book, and wow. For science fiction and what it was about, it was not too bad. It was a very different original concept, where I found it was quite scary. But going back to Douche Mage, Damien Hanson does post his frequently chapter by chapter, and because he has a lot of writing experience as a pantser and he is also able to edit his own work, he is able to post regularly chapter by chapter in advance. And the same goes with his other books that he has written. He has written a lot of good books with a good plot, a very effective flow of story, and able to upload frequently like that. I find when I write, I have to go back through a lot of editing phases when writing. So as a pantser, he is one person that I recommend following if you're interested in upping your game as a pantser. Number 2, acknowledgements and dedication. We all hear about dedicating books to the people that we love. And in my case, I also did an anti-dedication with the co-author Joanne Hanson to the people who don't want to celebrate Christmas and purposely want to ruin it. So an anti-dedication is one thing, though an acknowledgement to people instead of an anti-dedication, and then a dedication. So I believe the acknowledgements, there is an acknowledgement to the assholes that they encounter in life, other words, not my words. Then there is a dedication to every time you get hit in the nuts and feel that type of pain. So there was a lot of humour and jokes within the acknowledgements and dedication. Maybe consider that for some of your books. Number 3, 2 protagonists, 2 narrators. Having a male narrating the male and a female narrating a female character, as you can see from the cover. I think it worked so well where they're in this other game, in this other world, and again, there's that type of flow with the story that I felt worked well. And there are some audiobooks that work well between a male narration and a female narration. And because the chapters have that slight difference in how they're written, I think that's quite interesting. And I would like to pick Damien Hanson's brain more when it does come to co-authors and other subject matters like that, because I do think that there are some interesting perspective to follow how to work in with others. Number 4, Prelude. The story opens up with opening the chapter explaining that the main character works at an accounting firm, and there is a general rule to keep your head down and keep hidden, otherwise you might be forced to work the weekend, and the weekend is where Brett Muskie will have you all to himself. The way the story has moments of opening the chapters, I think it works so well where it already creates an interpretation to allow you to be open to interpretation to what a situation means. And yes, there are things that happen to show how the narrative works. Though, I don't know, there's just something about this relatable, humorous opening to chapters. It almost feels like the opening scenes to Desperate Housewives where there's, when you listen to the narration, it almost feels like you're imagining it your own way, whereas Desperate Housewives uses visuals. With this, I do think it is thought-provoking to use your imagination to what something means to your own relatability. And I think because it's kept to some good general rules like that, it is a relatable book to go through as an audiobook. Number 5, 24 chapters. There are 24 chapters within the book, though some of the chapters have a comedic title and some of them don't. Though it does help paint a picture to how the story is progressing, and then there's also another part where you use your imagination just with the title of the chapter itself. And I think with that humour, it doesn't distract from the main plot too much, but in its own way, it just allows you to use your imagination. And I felt that's what I feel with audiobooks like this. You do engage into using your imagination more so than if you were to read the book itself or other books that are out there. When you're reading the book, and I have the list up on my smartphone with different titles to the chapters in the audiobook, I go through, and one of my favourites is The Mini-Max's Guide to Exploiting the Hottest Loopholes, Shit, Brian's Dead. Then some more interesting ones. Mummy Chokes a Bitch on a Bastard Sword. Then you go down further, there's more. Lustful Little Leprechauns Lads. So there are some different ideas, and one of my favourites, Nolan wrote this shitty chapter. Again, I think there is a different market for some Gamelit stories, and also as a genre that's not explored too heavily. When it's its own original idea, I think it could be something to explore. And if you do enjoy writing this sort of book, audiobooks would be the better market for it. Number 6, The Party. The book consists of 5 characters, though the focus works well where you're focused between chapter to chapter between a male protagonist and a female protagonist, and then there are other supporting characters that help keep a flow of story. Though if you do like certain things like Dungeons and Dragons, different RPG games, I do think there is something within this book where you can create some interesting characters and still keep a fast action-paced story. Number 7, 4 books. There are 4 books in the Glitchworld series. Unfortunately, it came to an end, and he worked on some other projects that have gone heaps better. There are also children's books that he has written. I quite enjoyed Fairy Nights, and I believe that Damien Hanson has a lot more books to come, because he is still working very hard, as I mentioned earlier, as a pantser. Now with the 4 books, there is the first one being Glitchworld, the second one being Douche Mage, then I think the third one is Dungeons and Dill Holes. That was my favourite one. And then there was another one, Fustercluck. Now with the 4th book, I didn't actually get the joke. I've actually only just got the joke in the last 2 minutes preparing this video. So yeah, again, very well done. There are a lot of humour within the books, and as I was mentioning with Gamelit Fantasy, I have reviewed some other books previously on the other channel. I know someone else that's working on a few other projects, and I think there is a good market for this type of genre, and I think there are some good books with original ideas that can become bigger ideas later on. Number 8, Final Thoughts. I'd have to say within the final thoughts for Damien Hanson's work, I will always say they are better to go through these books as an audiobook. And there are other Gamelit stories where some authors have too much information, too much world building, which distracts with too many specific details how the system or game system in the story works, which takes away from the imagination. And it bogs down with information that's hard to remember, and also unnecessary to remember. I just think if you're after something to listen to for a bit of fun, a bit of humour, and want some relatability to some other things that you've done in your life with enjoying games with friends or Dungeons and Dragons, and if you did see the Dungeons and Dragons movie, it had a lot of humour in it as well, perhaps check out the Glitchworld series for yourself. And if you do look at some other stories, I will be reviewing some other Gamelit stories on this channel from other authors, but that is another story.